The warning lights flashed red across the control room of the UES Horizon. Captain Jake Mitchell gripped his chair as the ship shook hard. Sparks flew from broken panels. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Engine failure in all three. "Units!" shouted Pete Collins from his station. The young engineer's face was pale with sweat. "I can't stop it, Captain. We're going down." Jake looked at the view screen. Below them was a green world covered in thick forests. Mountains rose like giants in the distance. It looked peaceful, but their ship was falling fast toward the trees. "All crew to escape pods," Jake ordered into his radio. "This is not a drill. Abandon ship now." Dr. Lisa Grant ran through the hallways, helping injured crew members reach the pods. Her medical bag bounced against her side as she moved. "Come on, hurry," she called to the others. Amy Foster, the communications officer, was still at her post trying to send a message to Earth. Her fingers moved fast over the controls. "Mayday, Mayday! This is UES Horizon. We are crashing on planet Kepler 442b. 12 crew members aboard. Amy, we have to go now," Jake said, pulling her away from her station. The ship hit the forest canopy with a terrible crash. Tree branches broke like glass as the huge metal vessel smashed through them. The Horizon came to rest deep in the forest, half buried in dirt and broken wood. Jake woke up hours later. His head hurt badly. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. Around him, pieces of the ship lay scattered everywhere. Some crew members were moving slowly. Others lay still. "Lisa," he called out weakly. "Lisa, are you okay?" Dr. Grant crawled out from under a fallen beam. Her left arm hung at a strange angle. "I'm alive," she said, "but my arm is broken. We need to check on the others." Pete Collins was trapped under heavy metal. His legs were crushed, and he was breathing hard. "I can't feel my legs," he whispered. "Don't. Try to move," Lisa told him. She opened her medical bag with her good hand. Most of her supplies were broken or lost. "I'll do what I can." Amy Foster had cuts all over her face, but she was walking. "The radio is completely dead," she said. "I can't reach anyone." Jake counted the crew. 8 were still alive. 4 had died in the crash. He closed his eyes and said a quiet prayer for the dead. They set up a small camp near the crashed ship. Lisa worked without rest to help the injured. She used torn cloth from their uniforms to make bandages. When her pain medicine ran low, she saved it for Pete, who was hurt the worst. "You should take some too," Pete said, seeing her broken arm. "You need it." "You need it more," Lisa replied. She gave him her last pain pill and went back to helping others. On the second day, they heard strange sounds from the forest. Soft clicking noises mixed with musical tones. Jake grabbed a broken piece of metal to use as a weapon. From behind the trees, large eyes watched them. The creatures were about the size of humans, but moved differently. They had 6 arms and legs, and their skin was covered in feathers that changed colors like a rainbow. "Stay calm," Jake told his crew. "Don't make any sudden moves." The creatures, which the humans would later learn were called Veltar, stayed hidden but kept watching. They seemed curious but afraid. Amy started making soft sounds back at them. She had always been good with languages. "I think they're trying to talk," she said. The third night brought a terrible storm. Rain poured down like rivers from the sky. Lightning lit up the forest in bright flashes. The humans huddled together under a piece of the ship's hull. Through the rain? They heard a cry of pain. It wasn't human. Jake looked out into the storm. Lightning showed a small Veltar trapped under a piece of metal from their ship. The creature was young and hurt. Its rainbow feathers were now dark with blood. "We should help it," Lisa said. "It might be dangerous," one of the other crew members said. Jake thought for a moment. Then he stepped out into the rain. "Lisa, bring what medical supplies you have left." They ran through the storm to the trapped alien. The young Veltar looked at them with large, frightened eyes. It made soft, clicking sounds. "It's okay," Jake said gently, though he knew it couldn't understand. "We're here to help." Pete Collins crawled out from their shelter, dragging himself through the mud with his arms. His legs still didn't work, but he wanted to help. "I can lift this metal piece," he said. "You pull the creature out." Working together, they freed the young alien. Lisa used her last bandages to stop its bleeding. She gave it water from their small supply. The Veltar looked at her with something like understanding. Jake took off his jacket and wrapped it around the injured creature. "There," he said. "You'll be okay." The young Veltar made musical sounds. Its feathers changed to soft blue and gold colors. From the forest, more eyes watched. The older Veltar had seen everything. They saw the humans risk their own safety to help a stranger. They saw the human doctor use her last medicine on someone not of her own kind. They saw the injured human crawl through mud to help. The storm passed by morning. The young Veltar was still alive, sleeping peacefully wrapped in Jake's jacket. When it woke up, it looked at the humans for a long time. Then it made a series of musical sounds and walked slowly back to the forest. At the edge of the trees, it turned and looked back once more before disappearing. "I think we just made a friend," Amy said. Jake nodded. Around them, the forest was quiet, but they could feel they were being watched. Not with fear now, but with something else. Something that might one day become trust. None of them knew that this single act of kindness would be remembered and passed down through Veltar culture for generations. None of them knew that saving one young alien's life would one day save their entire species. But that story was still many years away. 6 months had passed since the crash. The humans had built a small camp using pieces from their broken ship. Jake Mitchell looked older now. His hair was turning gray, and lines showed around his eyes from worry and hard work. The young Veltar they had saved came back the next day after the storm. It brought others with it. At first, just 2 or 3 would watch from behind the trees. Then more came. They seemed fascinated by the strange visitors from space. Amy Foster had made the most progress in talking with them. She spent hours each day trying to understand their musical language. The Veltar spoke by making different sounds and changing the colors of their feathers at the same time. "Look," Amy said to Jake one morning. She pointed to an old Veltar, sitting near their camp. "When he makes this sound," she made a clicking noise, "his feathers turn bright yellow. I think it means hello." The old Veltar, whose name was Kithara, tilted his head and listened. His feathers turned gold, then blue, then back to gold. He made the same clicking sound Amy had made. "Hello," Amy said back in her human language. Then she tried to copy his feather colors by holding up yellow and blue cloth. Kithara's eyes grew wide. His feathers turned many colors at once, like a rainbow dance. Other Veltar gathered around, making excited musical sounds. Pete Collins was getting better, but his legs still didn't work right. He couldn't walk without help, but his mind was as sharp as ever. The Veltar were amazed by the machines the humans had built. They grow their tools instead of building them, Pete explained to the others. He watched as young Veltar shaped living trees into useful things. "See how they sing to that tree? It's growing into the shape they want." A group of young Veltar gathered around Pete every day. They watched him fix broken parts from the ship. Pete showed them how human tools worked. In return, they showed him their biotechnology. "This is incredible," Pete said, holding a tool that looked like it was made from living wood but was harder than metal. "They've learned to make living things work like machines." The young Veltar that Jake's team had saved was named Zarthek. He was learning human words from Amy and showing other Veltar that the humans were friends, not enemies. Dr. Lisa Grant had become very important to the Veltar community. Her broken arm had healed badly without proper medicine, but she didn't complain. Instead, she worked harder to help others. A sickness had started spreading among the Veltar. Their feathers lost their bright colors and turned gray. Many of the older ones became very weak. The Veltar healers tried their traditional medicines, but nothing worked. "It looks like some kind of infection," Lisa told Jake. "I think human medicine might help them." "But we barely have enough for ourselves," another crew member said. "What if we get sick too?" Lisa looked at the sick Veltar lying in their forest homes. Some were the same ones who had watched over the humans during their first difficult weeks. "We have to try," she said. She took the antibiotics they had been saving for emergencies. Working day and night, she mixed them with water and local plants that Veltar healers thought might help. "Try this," she said to Kithara, offering him the medicine. The old Veltar looked at her with his large, intelligent eyes. His feathers were almost completely gray from sickness. He took the medicine without fear. Within days, Kithara's feathers began to show color again. Word spread quickly through the Veltar community. Lisa's medicine was working. She had saved many of their people, but giving away their medicine had cost the humans. When one of Jake's crew got sick with fever, Lisa only had a little medicine left. "Take it," she told the sick crew member. "I gave my word to help whoever needed it." "But you might get sick too," he said. "Then that's a risk I have to take," Lisa replied. The Veltar saw everything. They watched Lisa give away her own safety to help others. They watched Pete teach their young ones, even though his own body was hurt. They watched Jake make fair decisions, even when his crew disagreed. Kythera began telling the story of the humans to other Veltar groups. The Veltar had no written language, but they remembered everything through songs and stories. The tale of the kind humans who saved Zarthek in the storm became part of their culture. "These humans are different from any beings we have known," Kythera sang to a gathering of Veltar elders. "They help others even when it hurts them. They share their food when they are hungry. They give their medicine when they are sick." The humans learned more about Veltar society, too. They discovered that the Veltar never fought wars. When they disagreed, they sang together until they found a solution everyone could accept. They shared everything with their community and took care of their old and young. "They're like humans, but better," Amy said to Jake one evening. "They have all our good qualities, but none of the bad ones." Jake nodded. "Maybe we can learn something from them." One day, dangerous animals attacked a group of young Veltar who were gathering food. The beasts were like giant wolves with armor-like skin and long claws. The young Veltar were in serious danger. Jake grabbed the only weapon they had working, an energy pistol with just a few shots left. "Stay here," he told his crew. "I'm coming with you," said Amy. "Me too," said Pete, though he had to be carried. They rushed into the forest where they could hear the Veltar crying for help. The wolf beasts had surrounded 3 young aliens, including Zarthek. The animals were getting ready to attack. Jake fired his weapon at the biggest beast. The energy blast scared the animals, but didn't hurt them much. Now the beasts turned toward the humans instead. "Run!" Jake shouted to the young Veltar. But Zarthek and the others didn't run. Instead, they started making loud musical calls. Within minutes, adult Veltar came from all directions. Working together, humans and aliens fought off the dangerous beasts. After the fight, Kythera approached Jake. The old Veltar's feathers were bright gold and blue, colors that meant deep respect and gratitude. "You risked your lives for our young ones," Amy translated as Kythera sang. "This will be remembered forever." That night, the Veltar held a special ceremony. All the humans were invited. Kythera sang a long, beautiful song that told the story of everything the humans had done since arriving on their world. "What's he saying?" Jake asked Amy. Amy listened carefully. Tears came to her eyes. "He's making our story part of their permanent culture. Every Veltar child will learn about us. They're saying we're not just friends, we're family now." 9 months after the crash, rescue ships from Earth finally arrived. Commander Ryan Bell landed with a full team of soldiers and engineers. "We've been looking for you for a long time," Bell told Jake. "Earth thought you were all dead." Jake looked around at the Veltar community that had become his second home. At Zarthek, who now spoke basic human language. At Kythera, whose life Lisa had saved. At the young Veltar who had learned human engineering from Pete. "We found something here more valuable than we ever imagined," Jake said. When it was time to leave, the goodbye ceremony lasted for 3 days. The Veltar sang songs that told the humans they would always be welcome to return. They gave them gifts made from living wood that would never break. "We won't forget you," Jake promised Kythera. The old Veltar's feathers turned deep purple, the color of eternal friendship. "And we will never forget what humans can be," Amy translated his song. "If you ever need help, no matter how far away or how long from now, the Veltar will remember." As the rescue ships lifted off, Jake watched the forest world grow small below them. He had no idea that the promise just made would one day save not just humanity, but many worlds across the galaxy. The seeds of that future were already planted in the songs and memories of a peaceful people who had learned that true strength comes from helping others. 15 years had passed since Jake Mitchell and his crew left the Veltar world. Jake was now Admiral Mitchell, with gray hair and a desk full of papers instead of a ship to command. He sat in his office on Earth, looking out at the busy space port where ships came and went every day. Request denied again, his assistant said, placing another official document on his desk. The Colonial Council says the Veltar world is too far away and has no valuable resources. They won't approve a diplomatic mission. Jake crumpled up the paper and threw it away. He had tried dozens of times to send official messages to his alien friends, but Earth's government always said no. Humans were too busy expanding to new worlds and didn't want to waste time on aliens who had nothing to trade. On the other side of the city, Dr. Lisa Grant stood in front of a classroom full of students. Her left arm still didn't work right from the old injury, but she used it to point at pictures of the Veltar on her teaching screen. The Veltar represent one of the most peaceful civilizations we've ever encountered, she told her students. Their entire society is built on helping each other and remembering acts of kindness. A student raised her hand. Why don't we talk to them anymore, Professor Grant? Lisa sighed. Because not everyone thinks making friends with aliens is important. Some people only care about planets with gold or oil or other things we can use. Far away on Mars, Pete Collins was now the chief engineer for humanity's deep space program. His legs worked better now thanks to robot parts, but he still walked with a cane. He often wondered if his Veltar friends had developed new technologies. I could design ships twice as good if I had their biotechnology, he told his assistant. They were growing machines that could fix themselves. We're still using metal and circuits like cavemen. President Karen Hayes sat in her office in the Capitol, reading reports about human expansion. Humans now lived on 47 different worlds. Some of those worlds had already been home to other aliens, but humans had taken them anyway. The frontier is everything, she told General Chris Wade, her military advisor. We need more colonies, more resources, more space. We can't waste time talking to every alien we meet. General Wade nodded. He was a hard man who believed that only the strong survived in space. Most aliens are either too weak to matter or too dangerous to trust. Better to avoid them entirely. But not everyone had forgotten the Veltar. Amy Foster now worked for the communications department, and she had been secretly trying to contact them for years. She used the big radio telescopes when no one was watching, sending messages toward their distant world. Hello, old friends, she broadcast into space. This is Amy. Are you still there? Do you remember us? The messages took years to travel across space. Amy never got any answers, but she kept trying. Meanwhile, on the Veltar homeworld, things were very different. The alien civilization had grown and changed, inspired by what they had learned from humans. Zarthek was now a leader among his people, and he often told stories about his human friends to the young ones. The humans taught us that beings from different worlds can work together, he would sing in the musical Veltar language. They showed us new ways to build and create. Kithara was very old now, but still alive. He spent his days maintaining the cultural memories of his people, the songs and stories that kept their history safe. The tale of the kind humans was one of the most important stories he preserved. The Veltar had used human ideas to improve their biotechnology. Their living ships could now travel between stars, though they moved more slowly than human vessels. They had tried many times to visit Earth, but the journey was long and difficult. We should try again to contact our human friends, Zarthek suggested to the Council of Elders. It has been many years since we heard from them. Perhaps they have forgotten us, said another elder. Kithara's feathers turned deep blue, the color of certainty. The humans we knew would not forget. If they are silent, there must be a reason. He was right. Back on Earth, Jake Mitchell had tried everything to reopen contact with the Veltar. He had written letters, made official requests, and even tried to organize a private mission. Every time the government said no. The Colonial Council doesn't understand, Jake told his old crew members at their annual reunion dinner. Lisa, Pete, and Amy were all there, looking older but still close friends. Maybe we should try going back on our own, Pete suggested. I could build a ship. With what money? Amy asked. And even if we could, it would take 20 years to get there. They all sat quietly, thinking about their alien friends so far away. None of them knew that their friends were also thinking about them at that same moment. As the years went on, Humanity's expansion became more aggressive. Human colonies met other alien races, and most of those meetings ended in fighting. Humans had better weapons and took what they wanted. See? General Wade told President Hayes after another successful conquest. This is how you deal with aliens. You either control them or destroy them. There's no middle ground. The government's attitude made it even harder for Jake to get permission to contact the Veltar. Officials worried that any aliens might become enemies eventually. But then something happened that changed everything. Deep space monitoring stations began picking up strange signals from the center of the galaxy. At first, scientists thought they were just natural phenomena, maybe radio waves from a black hole or colliding stars. Dr. Lisa Grant was called in to help study the signals because of her experience with alien languages. What she found made her very worried. "These aren't natural," she told Jake over a secure video call. "These are messages. Someone, or something, is broadcasting across the galaxy." "What kind of messages?" Jake asked. "I'm not sure yet, but they seem to be warnings. Other civilizations are trying to tell everyone about some kind of threat." Over the following months, the signals became clearer. Advanced civilizations near the galactic core were broadcasting desperate messages in dozens of different languages. Amy Foster worked day and night to translate what she could understand. The message was always the same. They are coming. Prepare. Fight together or die alone. Who's coming? President Hayes demanded to know. The answer came from an unexpected source. A badly damaged alien ship appeared at the edge of human space. The crew was dying, but they had one message to deliver. Jake Mitchell was called to the space station where the alien survivors were being treated. The beings looked like walking crystals, and they spoke through light patterns. Devourers. They flashed desperately. "Consume everything, destroy worlds, make more ships. Coming to your space. 2 years? Maybe less." The crystal aliens showed Jake recordings of what the Devourers had done to their homeworld. Massive biomechanical ships had surrounded the planet and started breaking it apart, atom by atom. The entire world was consumed to build more Devourer vessels. "How many ships?" Jake asked. "Millions," came the flashing reply. "More than stars you can count. We are last of our kind. Our whole galaxy arm is gone." Jake felt cold fear in his heart. Humanity's greatest battle fleet had only a few thousand ships. If millions of enemy vessels were coming, Earth had no chance. President Hayes called an emergency meeting. All of humanity's military leaders gathered to hear the terrible news. "We need allies," Jake said. "Every civilization we can find. We have to work together." General Wade shook his head. "Most aliens hate us because we've taken their worlds, and the ones who don't hate us are too weak to help." "What about the Veltar?" Jake asked. "What about them?" the president replied. "You said yourself they're peaceful. They probably don't even have weapons, but they might know other civilizations. They might be able to help us find allies." President Hayes looked tired and frightened. For the first time, she realized that humanity's aggressive expansion had made them many enemies and few friends. "Fine," she said finally. "Send a message to your alien friends. Ask them if they know anyone who might help us fight these Devourers. But don't expect much. We're probably on our own." Jake left the meeting with mixed feelings. Finally, he had permission to contact the Veltar again, but it was probably too late. In 2 years, humanity might not exist anymore. That night, Jake sat in the communications center as Amy Foster aimed the strongest radio transmitter on Earth toward the distant Veltar world. "This is Admiral Jake Mitchell calling Kythera, and the Veltar people," he broadcast. "We need your help. A terrible enemy is coming, and we can't fight them alone." The message would take 3 years to reach the Veltar world. Jake wondered if there would be anyone left alive to answer it. The Devourers came early. Instead of 2 years, humanity had only 18 months to prepare. The first sign of their arrival was the complete silence from the outer colonies. One by one, the human settlements on the frontier stopped sending messages. Home. Fleet Admiral Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Through the view screen, he could see the remains of New Boston Colony, where a thriving city of 2 million people had been just yesterday. Now there was only empty space and floating debris. "My God," whispered Captain Dan Rodriguez. a young officer who had never seen real combat before. They consumed the whole planet. There's nothing left. Jake had seen the reports, but seeing the reality was different. The Devourers didn't just destroy worlds. They broke them down into basic materials and used everything to build more ships. It was like watching cancer spread across the galaxy. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're getting reports from 12 other colonies. They're all under attack. On planets across human space, the same horror was happening. Massive biomechanical ships would arrive and surround a world. Then smaller vessels would descend and begin the consumption process. People tried to fight, but human weapons barely scratched the alien ships. Major Kelly Stone had been commanding ground forces on the mining world of New Arizona when the Devourers arrived. She was one of the few survivors who made it to an escape ship. "They don't even see us as enemies," she reported to Jake by radio. "We're just resources to them. They harvest people the same way they harvest metal and rock. Our weapons, our soldiers, even our buildings, they turn it all into more of themselves." The Devourer ships were unlike anything humans had ever faced. They seemed to be part machine and part living creature. When human missiles hit them, the ships would heal the damage within minutes. When human fighters attacked, the Devourer vessels would grow new weapons to shoot them down. General Chris Wade was in charge of Earth's defense, but even he was starting to panic. "We've lost 30 colonies in 2 weeks, he told Jake during a strategy meeting. "At this rate, they'll reach Earth in 6 months. "What about the message you sent to the Veltar?" asked Dr. Lisa Grant. She had been working with scientists to find weaknesses in the Devourer technology, but without success. Jake shook his head sadly. "Even if they got the message and decided to help, they couldn't get here in time. Their ships are too slow. Humanity's greatest battle fleet gathered near Earth for what everyone knew would be the final fight. Jake commanded over 3,000 ships, cruisers, destroyers, fighters, and the massive dreadnought UES Defiance. It was the largest fleet humans had ever assembled. It wasn't nearly enough. The Devourer motherships appeared at the edge of the solar system like a moving wall of death. There were so many that they blocked out the stars. Each mothership was larger than a human city, and there were thousands of them. Behind them came millions of smaller vessels. "Jesus Christ," whispered Pete Collins from the engineering section. His robot legs were locked in place to keep him steady during battle, and his hands shook as he worked on the ship's weapons. "How are we supposed to fight that?" The battle for Earth began on a Tuesday morning. Jake gave the order, and humanity's fleet charged toward the alien invaders. For a few minutes, it looked like they might have a chance. Human missiles found their targets, and several Devourer ships exploded. But then the enemy adapted. New shields appeared on their ships. Their hulls grew thicker. Within an hour, human weapons were barely scratching them. "They're learning from our attacks," reported the weapons officer. "Every time we hit them, they get stronger." One by one, human ships began to disappear. The Devourers didn't just destroy them. They consumed the vessels and their crews, turning the metal and energy into more enemy ships. Jake watched helplessly as the cruiser UES Liberty was swallowed by a biomechanical monster that grew larger after eating it. "Fall back to defensive positions around Earth," Jake ordered, but he knew it was hopeless. The Devourer fleet was too big, too adaptable, too hungry. Amy Foster was working frantically in the communications section, trying to coordinate the scattered human forces. But there was also something else she was doing, something she hadn't told anyone about. "Amy, what are you doing?" asked Jake, noticing her working at a second console. "I'm broadcasting a message to everyone," she said without stopping her work. "Every civilization we've ever met, every radio frequency we know. I'm telling them what's happening here." "Why?" "They can't help us now." Amy's eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "Because maybe someone will remember that we tried to warn them. Maybe someone will learn from our mistakes and do better." The Devourer motherships reached Earth's orbit. They began the process Jake had seen at so many other worlds, surrounding the planet and preparing to consume it. Smaller ships descended toward the surface, and the sky filled with dark shapes that blocked out the sun. Down on Earth, people looked up at the sky and knew their time was ending. Some prayed, some cried, some held their families close and waited. For the end, Jake made one last desperate decision. All ships ramming speed. We're going to take as many of them with us as we can. The remaining human vessels charged directly at the Devourer motherships. It was suicide, but it was also the only thing left they could do. Jake watched the enemy ships grow larger on his screen and prepared to die fighting. Then something impossible happened. "Sir," called the sensor operator, his voice shaking with confusion. "I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from outside the system." "More Devourers?" Jake asked. "No, sir. These are different. Much different. On the long range, sensors, new ships were appearing, but these weren't the dark, hungry shapes of the Devourer fleet. These ships seemed to dance through space, their hulls shining with rainbow patterns of light. "Oh my God," whispered Amy Foster, staring at her communication screen. "Jake, I'm getting a message. It's in the Veltar harmonic language." She quickly translated the musical tones coming through space. "Old friends, we heard your call. We are here. You are not alone." But it wasn't just Veltar ships approaching Earth. Mixed in with the rainbow-colored bio-vessels were ships of dozens of different designs. Some looked like giant crystals. Others moved like flowing liquid metal. Some were covered in what looked like living trees. "How many ships?" Jake asked, hardly daring to hope. The sensor operator checked his readings twice before answering. "Sir, I count over 50,000 vessels, and more are still arriving." Jake felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. The alien fleet spread out between Earth and the Devourers like a protective shield. At the front of the formation was a massive Veltar bioship that pulsed with gentle golden light. Amy's communications console lit up with an incoming message. The voice that came through was old and tired, but Jake recognized it immediately. "Admiral Jake Mitchell," came Kithara's translated words. "We remember your kindness. We remember your promise of friendship. Today, that friendship saves us all." Jake grabbed his radio with shaking hands. "Kithara, how did you get here so fast? How did you bring so many ships?" "We never stopped preparing for this day," the old Veltar replied. "When we received your message 15 years ago, we began building an alliance. We told other civilizations the story of human kindness. We convinced them that beings who save strangers in storms are worth saving in return." The Devourer fleet paused in their attack. For the first time in their existence, they faced united resistance on a scale they had never seen. But they were still confident. They had consumed thousands of worlds. They had faced many civilizations. They had always won. They were about to learn that some things in the universe are stronger than hunger. The battle that saved the galaxy began with silence. For long moments, the two great fleets faced each other in the space around Earth. On one side were the Devourers, millions of dark, hungry ships that had consumed countless worlds. On the other side was something they had never encountered, 50,000 vessels from dozens of different civilizations, all working together. Admiral Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching in amazement as alien ships positioned themselves to protect Earth. He saw crystal vessels from the beings who had warned humanity about the Devourers. He saw metal ships that flowed like water, and bioships covered in what looked like living forests. "The Veltar are requesting permission to link their ships with ours," reported Amy Foster from her communications station. "Link ships?" Jake asked. "What does that mean?" Before Amy could answer, tendrils of living material extended from the nearest Veltar bioship toward the Defiance. Jake tensed, thinking it might be an attack, but then he felt the ship change. Around him, the metal walls became warm and seemed to pulse with life. New controls appeared on his console, and suddenly he could feel the thoughts of the Veltar pilots. "We are stronger together," came Kithara's voice, now speaking directly into Jake's mind through the biolink. "Your human tactical knowledge combined with our living technology." Similar connections were happening throughout the Allied fleet. Human engineering merged with alien biotechnology. Crystal beings shared their energy weapons with metal ships. Forest dwellers provided healing abilities to wounded vessels. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of different species were fighting as one unified force. The Devourers attacked first, confident that their overwhelming numbers would win, but they immediately encountered something that confused them. Cooperation on a scale their hive mind couldn't understand. When Devourer ships tried to consume a human vessel, Veltar bioships would merge with it, making the hull impossible to break down. When the Devourers adapted their weapons to fight one type of alien technology, 3 other species would attack using completely different methods. Pete Collins found himself working directly with alien engineers through the BioLink. His human knowledge of machines combined with Veltar living technology created weapons that the Devourers had never seen before. "Look at this," he told Jake excitedly. His robot legs locked in place as he worked at a console that was now part metal and part living wood. "We can make our missiles grow and adapt while they're flying. The Devourers can't learn to defend against something that changes faster than they can adapt." Dr. Lisa Grant was coordinating medical efforts across the fleet through the BioLink. She could feel the pain of wounded alien pilots and share human medical knowledge with healers from a dozen different worlds. "The crystal beings don't feel pain the way we do," she reported, "but they can transfer energy to heal other ships. The forest dwellers can regrow damaged hull sections. We're creating a fleet that can heal itself faster than the Devourers can." Heard it. But the most important discovery came from an unexpected source. Major Kelly Stone, who had survived the destruction of New Arizona Colony, was now commanding a mixed squad of human soldiers and Veltar warriors aboard a Devourer ship they had captured. "Jake, you need to hear this," she reported through the BioLink. "The Devourers have a collective mind, like a hive, but they've never encountered true self-sacrifice before. When our people die to save others, it actually damages their mental network." Through the BioLink, Jake could see what Kelly meant. The Devourer hive mind was based on consuming and growing. The idea of deliberately giving up resources, including one's own life, to help others was so foreign to them that it caused system failures in their ships. "They literally can't understand why we're helping each other," Kelly continued. "Every time someone sacrifices themselves for the group, nearby Devourer ships actually shut down for several minutes." Jake realized this was their key to victory. "All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell. When you have the chance to save another vessel, take it, even if it means risking your own ship. Our willingness to help each other is a weapon they can't defend against." What followed was the most beautiful and terrible battle in galactic history. Human pilots rammed their fighters into Devourer ships to save alien vessels. Veltar bioships sacrificed themselves to heal damaged human cruisers. Crystal beings transferred their life energy to power the weapons of dying forest dweller ships. Each act of selfless courage sent shock waves through the Devourer hive mind. Ships that had never failed before suddenly stopped working. The collective intelligence that had consumed thousands of worlds began to break down when faced with beings who chose to give rather than take. Zarthek, the young Veltar that Jake had saved during the storm so many years ago, was now commanding a group of bioships in the heart of the battle. Through the link, Jake could feel his friend's determination. "Remember the storm, old friend," Zarthek's thoughts came through clearly. "You saved me when you had nothing to gain. Today, we save everyone." Zarthek led his ships in a suicide run against the largest Devourer mothership. As his bio-vessel merged with the enemy ship and began tearing it apart from the inside, the Veltar pilot's final thoughts echoed through the BioLink. "Tell the story. Remember the kindness." The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate and catastrophic. The mothership's destruction, caused by an act of pure self-sacrifice, sent feedback through their collective mind. Hundreds of enemy vessels simply shut down, their crews unable to process what they had witnessed. "They're retreating," reported Amy Foster, tears streaming down her face as she felt the loss of Zarthek and dozens of other alien friends through the BioLink. But Jake could see through the enhanced sensors that it wasn't a retreat. It was a collapse. The Devourer fleet was breaking apart as individual ships lost connection to their hive mind. Many were fleeing in random directions. Others were simply drifting in space, their crews overwhelmed by concepts they couldn't understand. "No," Jake said quietly. "They're not retreating. They're dying. Their entire way of thinking is based on consuming others. When they see beings who are willing to give everything for strangers, it breaks them." The battle continued for 3 more days, but the outcome was never in doubt after that first day. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed invincible, was defeated not by superior weapons, but by superior values. When the last enemy ship was destroyed or fleeing, Jake found himself in the communications room with Amy Foster. She was trying to establish contact with Kithara, whose ship had been badly damaged in the fighting. The old Veltar's image appeared on the screen, flickering and weak. His rainbow feathers were now mostly gray, and Jake could see that his friend was dying. "Kithara," Jake said, "you saved us all. How can we ever repay you?" The ancient aliens. Feathers showed a faint glimmer of gold, the color of joy. "You already did, old friend. 15 years ago, you showed us what beings can become when they choose kindness over fear. We shared that story with others, and they shared it with others, until enough civilizations believed that cooperation was possible. But so many died. To save us," Jake said. "Zarthek, and hundreds of others." "They died as they lived," Kithara replied. "Helping others. Their sacrifice will be remembered in our songs forever. And now, no civilization will ever face extinction alone again." Kithara's image faded as his ship's power failed, but his final message came through clearly. "The alliance we built to save you will continue. We are all family now." In the weeks that followed, Jake watched as representatives from dozens of alien civilizations gathered on Earth. They formed a new organization called the Galactic Alliance, dedicated to mutual aid and protection. Humanity was invited to join, not as conquerors but as equals. President Karen Hayes, who had once believed only in human expansion, now stood before the United Nations and announced humanity's entry into the galactic community. "We learned that our strength comes not from taking what we want, but from giving what others need," she said. Pete Collins was appointed as the Alliance's chief engineer, working with alien scientists to develop technologies that helped rather than harmed. His new robot legs were replaced with biomechanical ones grown by Veltar technology, and he walked better than he had in decades. Dr. Lisa Grant became the Alliance's first xenobiological officer, helping different species understand each other's medical needs. Her broken arm was healed by crystal being energy therapy, but she kept a slight crook in it as a reminder of where her journey had begun. Amy Foster ran the new Translation Center, where the languages and cultures of 47 different species were studied and preserved. She made sure that the story of the first human Veltar meeting was recorded in every language, so that future generations would remember how friendship could cross the stars. Jake Mitchell, now promoted to Grand Admiral of the Alliance Fleet, established his headquarters on a space station orbiting the Veltar homeworld. The station was built using combined human and alien technology, and its biomechanical halls rang with the sounds of a dozen different species working together. On quiet evenings, Jake would walk through the memorial garden aboard the station, where living trees grown by forest dwellers honored the memory of all who had died in the battle against the Devourers. In the center of the garden was a small grove dedicated to Zarthek and the other Veltar who had given their lives. The memorial plaque was written in both human and Veltar languages. They heard the call of strangers in need and gave everything to answer it. May we all aspire to such kindness. As Jake stood there one evening, a young Veltar approached him. This one's feathers were bright with the colors of youth and curiosity. "Admiral Mitchell," the young alien sang in accented but clear human speech, "my name is Kithek. I am the great-nephew of Zarthek. Would you tell me the story of the storm?" Jake smiled and sat down on a bench made of living wood that had grown itself into a perfect shape. "Of course," he said. "It began with a crash landing and a choice, to help a stranger." As Jake told the story once again, he realized that this was how the future would be built, not through conquest or consumption, but through kindness shared across the stars. One story at a time, one act of help at a time, one friendship at a time. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and now, for the first time in history, its civilizations would explore it together.